On the morning of June 4, 1942, at 7 a.m., over the Pacific, on the bridge of the Soryo, Yamaguchi Tamon couldn't slow down. This day wasn't just another combat operation, it was the day he had to face the Japanese Navy's most elite task force and strike at Midway. In his command weren't just the Soryo, but also Kaga, Akagi, and Hiryu, 4 carriers forming the fiercest naval fist at the time. 2 hours earlier, 108 Japanese aircraft had already been sent toward Midway. Bombs rained down, fire spreading across the island. By plan, this was supposed to be the day the US base was crippled. But the reports coming back changed the mood instantly. Key targets hadn't been destroyed, and Midway could still fight back. Explosions rocked the Soryo's deck and the nerves of everyone on board. Soon, US aircraft took off from what was left of Midway, hugging the sea as they headed straight for the fleet. Japanese Zeros scrambled to intercept. Unescorted US torpedo planes were picked off one by one, crashing into the ocean like sliced fruit. Yet, even after taking heavy fire, some US planes completed their attack runs. Torpedoes streaked through the water, and the entire Japanese fleet held its breath. In the end, the torpedoes passed, none hit the Soryo, and none hit the other carriers. The Japanese breathed a brief sigh of relief, but trouble wasn't over. Nagumo ordered preparations for a second strike on Midway. Planes were hastily rearmed with land attack bombs. The hangar deck became chaotic, sailors running back and forth carrying bombs and torpedoes, working like their hair was on fire. Before half the planes were rearmed, reconnaissance reported enemy ships at sea. Though it was unclear what ships they were, the presence of US capital ships nearby meant serious business. Nagumo had to abort the second strike on Midway, keeping planes loaded with torpedoes to attack the ships instead. The result? Critical time wasted. Even worse, the hangars were now stacked with half-loaded bombs and torpedoes, making the fleet like a floating barrel of gunpowder. Meanwhile, waves of US aircraft kept coming from Midway. Japanese anti-aircraft guns fired frantically, tearing lines of fire through the sky, shooting down many attackers, but the Americans wouldn't retreat. Bombs continued to hit the water around the fleet. The Soryo was surrounded by splashes from near misses. Crew on deck narrowly avoided disaster, and Yamaguchi's anger boiled over. He thought Nagumo was moving too slowly. The Soryo still had enough planes to act first and strike, but reality gave them no chance. Planes from the morning's Midway strike were returning, and the carriers had to recover them first, or the deck wouldn't be clear. Waiting for them only heightened the tension. Finally, the last plane landed, but at that exact moment, new enemy planes appeared, skimming the sea. This wasn't the scattered attacks from Midway, it was a large formation of US Navy torpedo planes, clearly launched from a carrier. The Japanese dove to intercept again, chasing the slow torpedo planes. The sky and sea lit up with explosions and falling aircraft. Through his binoculars, Yamaguchi saw streams of water where torpedo planes were hit. Even though the first rows were shredded, some planes pressed on through the fire. They closed in and released torpedoes, 5 white trails streaked toward the Soryo's starboard side. Captain Gale immediately ordered a hard right rudder, and the massive ship twisted just enough to dodge them all. Sailors cheered, but Yamaguchi's face darkened. He knew the high-altitude airspace was now empty, leaving the fleet vulnerable. At 10:22 a.m., nearly 50 USSBD Dauntless dive bombers appeared from high above, slowly entering their dive positions. The Zeros were still chasing, leaving the last torpedo planes no chance to intercept. What followed nearly destroyed the entire Japanese task force. Kaga was hit first, 30 dive bombers from the southwest. Anti-aircraft fire couldn't stop them. With bombs and torpedoes already spread across her hangar deck, the ship erupted in massive explosions, turning into a fireball. Yamaguchi could feel the shockwave, but there was no time to be stunned. 17 more Dauntless dived on Soryo next, igniting her as well. Even the flagship Akagi was hit by just 3 dive bombers, yet one bomb pierced her flight deck, exploded below, triggering a chain reaction. Within minutes, Kaga, Soryo, and Akagi were virtually out of action. The only carrier still capable of striking was Hiryu. Yamaguchi stayed calm, knowing this was Japan's last chance to fight back. Nagumo, operating from a temporary command on Kirishima, quickly sent orders to Hiryu. Yamaguchi decided to counterattack, sending every remaining plane. The first wave, 24 dive bombers led by Kobayashi, took off. Halfway, they encountered US fighter escorts. Zeros had to break off, leaving the bombers exposed. At 11:55, Kobayashi spotted the US fleet, including the carrier Yorktown. He pressed on with 18 dive bombers. 12 US Wildcats intercepted. tearing through the formation. Only 10 bombers remained, with 2 having dropped their bombs early to avoid fire. Kobayashi split the remaining 8 bombers into 2 groups, attacking from different directions. Despite anti-aircraft fire, they pressed the dive, dropping bombs. 3 hit Yorktown, 1 through the hangar, 1 beside the island, and 1 into the elevator shaft. On return, Hireu's dive bombers were almost wiped out, 13 of 18 lost, along with 3 zeros. But the strike wasn't in vain. Recon reported that the US had 3 carriers, and at least 1 was now severely damaged. The crew readied the next wave, a veteran torpedo bomber pilot nicknamed Swimming. His plane had been damaged earlier and barely repaired, a one-way ticket. An hour later, 35 miles out, he saw a U.S. carrier still apparently intact. It was the Yorktown, though already hit. He pressed the attack, dividing 10 torpedo bombers into 2 groups. Swimming carefully lowered his plane, aiming to deliver his torpedo. Before reaching the ideal distance, a U.S. Wildcat attacked, setting his plane on fire. Despite this, he released the torpedo and plunged with the plane. Unfortunately, his torpedo missed. His 2 others in the group missed as well. The first half of the group was nearly annihilated, but as Yorktown maneuvered desperately, 5 torpedo planes approached from the left. 1 malfunctioned, leaving 4 torpedoes. 2 hit Yorktown's port side, stopping the ship and causing a severe list. After the Japanese planes returned, Yamaguchi briefly hoped he had crippled a second U.S. carrier. He began planning a 3rd sortie for 6 p.m. But at 3:50 p.m., reconnaissance reported 2 more U.S. carriers 120 miles northwest. Yamaguchi's worst fear was confirmed. The main U.S. force was far from destroyed. At 5:02 p.m., 14 U.S. planes appeared over Soryu. The first 6 Dauntless were dodged by a hard port turn, but 14 more bombers came. 2 bombs hit the forward flight deck, and the last 3 enemy planes also began their dive. Within seconds, 2 more bombs blew deep craters in the forward deck, fire spreading into the hangar, destroying the last defensive capability. At 9:23 p.m., Soryu lost all power and went dead in the water, with fires still burning. By 2:30 a.m., 800 survivors gathered around the burning ship, waiting for the final order. Yamaguchi took responsibility for the losses of Soryu and Kaga, declaring he would go down with the ship. He ordered everyone else to leave, continuing service to the emperor. Soldiers faced Tokyo, shouting Banzai, as the rising sun flag was slowly lowered. He left 2 final messages, one for Nagumo, expressing no excuses and hope for Japan's navy to grow stronger and avenge them. Another for nearby destroyer commander Abe Toshio, ordering him to finish off Soryu with torpedoes. The captain of Soryu, following orders, chose to stay with Yamaguchi until the end. At 5:10 a.m., the destroyer launched 2 torpedoes, one missed, the other hit. Finally, at 9:12 a.m., the carrier that had burned all night sank. Yamaguchi Taman went down with the Soryu.